Hi, I'm Amanda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I'm making these videos with tips to help people become more creative. And I always say that these tips are meant to help anybody at any level. They're also useful for people of all different ages except for maybe babies and toddlers. And this tip, in fact, was inspired by something that I read about children, but it definitely can apply to adults. But I'm going to be talking about how you can use creativity to deal with decision fatigue and overwhelm. This idea came about because I was reading something that I hope is an exaggeration, but I've been reading articles written by teachers about the children they're teaching and that they will give up after one try trying to figure out a problem. And that one try is usually something that somebody actually told them, and then they're just unable to try to think of anything else. And if you've survived to adulthood, I'm guessing you probably understand how to try more than one solution to figure something out, to make at least a few attempts. But even as adults, we can just be overwhelmed by all the decisions we have to make and just kind of mentally check out where we have to solve a problem or figure something out or come up with some kind of a solution, make some kind of a decision. And so I'll talk about how to use creativity to help with that. But one rather disturbing example that that some teachers were saying was that if you set a book down in front of a second or third grader, and I'm talking about a physical book like a paperback, and you just set it on the desk in front of them, and you say, okay, read from this book, the kid will often just try one thing that somebody else had told them to work for some other thing. Like, for example, they might try to swipe the book, or in some cases they might try to use a voice command to get the paperback to open. Obviously neither of those works. Now the logical thing to do would be to maybe pick up the book and look at it, or even try to, do an online search for a solution. But apparently a lot of these kids, and I hope it's a very small percentage, but if swiping doesn't open that book, they're done, and they're not going to try another, they're not going to try anything past that. And again, if you've survived to adulthood, probably you would at least take the step to pick up the book or do something else to figure out how to open that book and read from it. But even so, if you're just under a lot of stress or just having to constantly make decisions about things, then I think adults can wind up almost in that same place of just, like I said, mentally checking out. And so this is where creativity comes in, because creativity will allow you to use your brain without necessarily having to make a decision. And I mean, of course, if you're doing anything creative, you're going to wind up having to make decisions, and it's a good way to get back on track. But if you find that you're just in that state of mind where you've just checked out and you just don't want to make any more decisions like that, then that's where you pick up a creative project. And honestly, I kind of think this is why adult coloring books have become so popular, because if you really don't even know where to start, and this would also apply to children probably, get a coloring book. And then you have to make the slight decision about what color you're going to put where. And that can actually help reset your brain and get you back on track where you're at least thinking about what you're going to, like, how you can make a decision and not just try one thing and give up. And of course for children, I think they might need a little bit more guidance, and again, maybe a coloring book. If kids are have checked out this much, and you set down a box of crayons and a sheet of paper and you say, just draw something, I have a feeling those kids would probably just stare at the page. But maybe if you say something like, draw a flower, or draw a sun and clouds, that would get them started. And I think especially with children like this, just something where they're making minor decisions, but will help get you back on track. But the thing about creativity that makes it different is that there's really no right or wrong answer to anything. So if you sit down with a coloring book and it has the sun in the sky and you color the sun blue, that's not incorrect. It's whatever you want it to look like. And of course the same for children. Just that's the point with using creativity to get your brain back on track. There is no right or wrong answer. And definitely if you're finding yourself in this kind of a situation and you're resorting to doing something creative, even as simple, like I said, as using a coloring book, just by simply having to think of, make these very small decisions where there is no right or wrong answer, and it's not going to be a problem if you make the wrong choice, that will help get you back on track and help your brain be maybe not quite so overwhelmed with making decisions in the future. Well, I hope you found this video to be useful. Again, my name is Amanda McKay, and thank you so much for watching.